schools before heading off to work. At school, Sunni and Dina were recognized as the girls with the wet hair, as their long dark hair was often still damp from their morning dip. After school, Bonnie would drive them to Harvard again for a couple of hours of swimming. This routine continued until the three of them graduated from high school. While remembering their childhood, Bonnie says, "All three were very competitive." The Pandya home was in Needham, a Boston suburb, where they lived from 1966 to 1995. The famous universities, Boston University, BU, and Harvard, were close by, and Deepak, a neuroanatomist, one who studies the nervous system, himself taught at BU. Sunita was only a year old, and Dina and Jay were 3 and 4 respectively when the family moved to Boston from Euclid, Ohio. Sunita started her schooling in Needham at the local elementary school. She loved school, but she loved the pool more. Ask her about her first time in the water, and she doesn't even remember having learned to swim. It had been a part of her life forever. At first, Bonnie would take her to the local YMCA, but by the time she was 10, Sunita joined Jay and Dina at the Harvard pool, where they were coached by the legendary Joe Bernal. Formerly the head coach at Harvard University, Bernal is now an Olympic coach. Sunita, Jay and Dina were a part of his swim club, Bernal's Gators. Until she graduated from high school, Sunita remained in the Bernal's Gators and for a long time was the youngest Gator on the team. India, Slovenia and the USA. Deepak Pandya grew up in Julasan, a small town near Ahmedabad in Gujarat. He completed his medical studies here. Having lost his parents very early, he chose to follow his older brother, Naveen, to the United States. This was in the late 1950s, when air travel was still not as common as it is now. For Deepak to reach the United States by sea, he had to travel by train from Julasan to Bombay, now Mumbai, from there by ship to London, and onward again by another ship, the Queen Elizabeth, to New York. The whole journey took 21 days. Now, compare that with the time it takes now. Only a day from Mumbai to New York, or 8.5 minutes to outer space. Deepak remembers the journey vividly. He says that at the start of his journey, he wasn't very fluent in English, but he met and spoke to so many people on his long voyage across the seas that by the time he arrived in New York, he was speaking English far more confidently than he had starting out. Deepak's destination was a city called Euclid in the state of Ohio, where a job waited for him at the Euclid General Hospital. He thought he would spend 2 years there and then return to India to practice. Before this period was over, something happened that would change his plans for the future. Ever so often, at the hospital cafeteria, Deepak would run into a young X-ray technician. He never managed to speak to her, but found himself glancing her way each time. And one night, at a party, the two of them were introduced for the first time. Her name was Bonnie Zalokar. At the end of the evening, Deepak offered to drop Bonnie home. It was the first time he had a chance to really talk to her. They began dating and were married 6 months later. It was an intimate church wedding attended by friends, colleagues, and relatives of the bride and groom. With this, of course, there was no question of Deepak returning to India. The United States became home to the Pandya couple. Deepak continued his residency at the Case Western University, training in neurology. Bonnie's great-grandparents had emigrated from Slovenia and arrived in America at the turn of the century. Bonnie herself was born and raised in Cleveland, where the Zalokar family ran a delicatessen. Food was a big part of their lives, and weekends meant getting together as a family with music and games over traditional Slovenian food. Bonnie inherited her parents' phenomenal cooking skills. Deepak was vegetarian, and after their wedding, Bonnie expanded her culinary repertoire to include vegetarian Gujarati dishes.